Hey everybody, PM Kester here with How to Take a Break, the podcast. Did you start the year saying that this was the year to get your money in order? Because I did. And in this video, I'm going to let you know what I did in the first 10 days of January to get my money right so that I could stop being broke. Transparent moment. Go with your pencils and paper and let's talk about it. All right, everybody. All of the housekeeping stuff that we usually do. Thank you so much for following, subscribing, watching, liking, and commenting on the videos. I love when you comment so we can have that conversation. So please continue to do that. We just finished up the 3 weeks of career videos, and I decided to kind of pivot into talking about money for the last week of January. I think that's when this video will come out. So it's either going to be the last week of January or the first week of February. But we're pivoting into a quick conversation on money, because that is how I started off my year. I don't set resolutions. I set intentions because they are more forgiving. And I have 3 categories that I focus in on. So my intention for 2025 is emerge. I want to emerge on the other side of a lot of things, come out in front on top of. And my 3 categories are career, relationships, and money. But I circled money when I did that because I felt like I had all this growth last year in career. Really, I feel like my past 2 years have been very career growth heavy. And learned a lot of lessons in relationships the past 2 years. But I feel like money stuff has not been happening in a favorable way for me. I have not been seeing the growth, the gains that I thought I was going to see. So I dedicated to starting the year off being very intentional, very focused on doing the work necessary to stop being broke. What do I mean by that? Making a good salary and wondering where my money is. Now, I also recognize for the past couple of years, and it's funny because people tried to gaslight me on it, the cost of food in the grocery store wasn't going up, or my utilities weren't getting bigger and getting more expensive, not bigger. But and I had situations that came up where there was more people in my household at one point that was causing everything to go up, and I was feeling it. I was feeling the crunch. And my finances are a mess and not where they need to be. So I was very intentional. I started literally January 1st with a fire under me, making phone calls, researching stuff on the internet, just working on money, having conversations, scheduling things. So in the first 10 days of January, I was making some moves because I will not end 2025 broke. Do you hear me? Do you hear me? So, 4 things that I did to stop being broke this year. Number 1, honestly assessed my money. How did I do that? I love to write. I love to journal. I sell journals. So I literally got a finance journal. I don't know if you can see this. Because I have a regular journal, and I decided that money had become such a big issue with me that it needed its own book. And so I basically wrote down all of my income sources. So all the places that I get money from, whether it's from stuff with How to Take a Break. So that's basically, I don't get paid for any of my social media. Just real talk. And a lot of people aren't. They're lying to you. So I wrote down what I get from How to Take a Break, which is usually from selling my journals. I wrote down my income from my 9-to-5 job. I also have a part-time job. Wrote it all down. Got sad after I wrote it all down because I was like, I'm making a lot of money. My gosh, what's happening? I also wrote down all my debt. So all my credit card stuff, loans, anything like that. Wrote it all down. What do I owe? Account status, balances, all that kind of stuff. Like I made it all plain. I wrote it all out. I was writing for a while. Like I was scribbling. And then I wrote down in another column / area my living cost. So this is stuff like my rent, groceries, utilities, gas, even like some of my random stuff. And I can go deeper detail with that once we get a little later in, because we're going to come back to that. That's important. This part also will require you to go into like your bank statements, which is wonderful now because there's apps for everything. So literally, like, I was doing the homework. Like, I was up. Oh my gosh, the first 10 days of January, I was literally up several nights until like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning because I was just up writing stuff down. Something would pop in my head about finances and I would just be like writing it down. I was researching like all the money and writing the things down. But honestly, assess your money. It was important for me to get everything down on paper so I could have a clear picture. I realized after I wrote it down that, one, my debt was not as high as I thought it was. But when you're kind of unorganized and you're in panic mode or survival mode, which I feel like I had started to get into because it just felt like I was never getting ahead, the debt kind of took on like its own personality. It became like this big looming monster. And it became much bigger than it was. Now it's big, but it wasn't as big. It wasn't as much as I thought it was. So that helped. It also helped to kind of confront what I was spending my money on, because a lot of times, yes, I do have like the apps, so I can see where money is coming from in like my checking accounts. I don't really use a lot of my credit cards anymore. That was one thing, thank goodness, I stopped doing because there was so much debt. I stopped doing it by the end of 2024. But yeah, charging stuff, like the horrors of the swipity swipe. So it was good seeing the stuff written down on the paper. All right. So after you honestly assess your money, writing it all down, important, look at your options. So this is when I had a conversation with a friend, which I also suggest, and I'm going to talk more about that too. Just kind of being honest with people. There's 2 friends I've been honest with about like my financial situation, and so I've gotten some counsel. And one of them suggested maybe just talking to a bankruptcy attorney. So I did. But before I did that, I went to and did some online calculators, and some reading. Ooh, girl, hold up now. All right. No child is missing, but we're under a winter weather watch. Okay. So that kept me up all night because I was doing all these calculators and doing all this reading on bankruptcy. So if you're not familiar with bankruptcy, there are 2 types. There, for us regular folk, there is Chapter 7, which basically wipes everything away. Like it's the forgiveness one. I think it stays on your credit longer, but if you read stuff like My FICO or like even Bankruptcy Reddit, most people will tell you that after they file and stuff is forgiven or whatever, like they can go and rent an apartment and get a car and all this other type of stuff after like 6 months. Like it wipes it clean. Like, oh, poof, debt gone, everything gone. Wonderful. That's the one that you want to get, but it's harder to get because there are income limits to filing, and a lot of people don't. It's hard to meet the requirements. But that's the one you want because it wipes everything out. And then the other one is Chapter 13. That one is stressful. That one you work out a payment arrangement with your creditors, with your attorney, and then there's like a court appointed trustees, and like you're in some type of payment plan for like 5 years. And there's a percentage that you have to pay back from like 0 to, well, or maybe like 1% to like 100%. So you can be paying back like it up to like 1,000 or more a month under that plan, or as low as like a couple of $100s. It just depends on how the math breakdown. And there's like a worksheet. So like the calculator I did online is an example of this tool that you can actually find the worksheets through like the courts and the paperwork, and you start to like break down like basically kind of what I had you write down, where you assist and you do like your income, your debt, and your living costs, and they give you like some federal limits for the cost and stuff like that. And you subtract all that, and they use that to figure if you qualify for Chapter 7, or if they think that you don't qualify, they see that the sheet shows that you don't qualify for Chapter 7, what it looks like your repayment plan, your repayment limits will be for Chapter 13. So I did all that. So I looked at my options for that. I also read up on credit counselors and talked to some credit counselors. I talked to 2 bankruptcy attorneys. I talked to, and one really tried to push me into Chapter 13. And then I talked to another one who was great and met with me for like an hour. Actually was going to go and do more than an hour, but talked to me about Chapter 7, what I would have to do to really was trying to work the numbers with me and show me the numbers and kind of help me come to the conclusion that I wasn't going to qualify for Chapter 7. But I did the work. So basically I looked at my options. I talked to credit counselors, about like debt consolidation loans and things of that nature, or like working out arrangements and things on my own, or maybe with somebody's help. Bankruptcy attorneys, talked to 2 of those. And then I even attended a session with a CPA, because How to Take a Break is a business. So I was like asking questions about what happens if you file for bankruptcy, if you have a business, and if you close down the business. So I looked at my options, basically. That's what that was. So after having all those conversations with people, looking at my options, credit counseling, debt consolidation loan or whatever, bankruptcy, 7 or 13, CPA, I then took action. I kind of knew in my head which way I was leaning after having these conversations and kind of like sitting with the information. Because by that time I had so many pages of notes. So I kind of set aside a time one morning and just literally walked myself through all of this information that I had gotten, looked at the numbers, looked back on the notes I took from conversation with the attorneys, the credit counselors. But then I also reached out to my friends, my accountability partners, just to be like, hey, I don't have anyone to talk through this with. Can I just kind of talk through this? Can you listen as I talk through this and get to the conclusion? And so for me, taking action was recognizing that I was going to have to save myself, and I had the power to save myself. And I was just going to start the next day working with my creditors, the people that I owed the debts to, and get some settle the debt, which is something you can do. Like if they dismiss your credit charges, I'll try to link something, or maybe we can have I can get somebody on to do an interview about that. But so work on some debt settlement, work on some payment arrangements, and kind of set goals for myself each month to pay off certain things in full, to just like not repeat, because the whole goal is to not repeat the cycle. So that's where I am now with taking action, is that I've negotiated with some of the creditors, and like I have this plan, I'm paying stuff off, and I'm continually negotiating and getting this done with the goal of kind of having some type of settlement or payoff done by the end of the year. And it's all mapped out in the finance journal. And the final thing is, after I took action, I started to implement change. So, each Sunday, I check into my journal. I make sure that I am on top of my budget. So I start the week looking through my budget. Each payday, I have budgeted out each payday that I have and where the money is going, assigning where it's going. I also make sure I go through my banking apps on Sunday and just kind of look at like how I'm spending. And so that's why I said we're going to come back to that. When you look at your living cost and like the random spending, I feel like I'm giving myself grace. And the attorney was like really adamant about not blaming myself and giving myself grace for stuff that I had to do when I have been in tight financial spots that led me to where I am now. But I'm writing stuff down to learn from, like, okay, I, bought a bunch of random stuff and I shouldn't have did that. Why did I do that? And it's kind of like seeing it in black and white kind of like brings it to my awareness. And it's just like, okay, no, you don't need to be doing that. Do you need to be eating out? Why are you doing that? You have food at home, which is another goal of mine. It's like to always make sure that my fridge and my cabinet is basically stocked. If I don't do anything this year, it's going to always be stocked. So that's another way I'm implementing change, but staying on top of my finance journal, checking in every payday, like making sure I'm budgeted and money is assigned and that I take the time to really sit down with this notebook and check stuff off. But also checking in every week and comparing what I have in my finance journal with what is showing up in my banking apps and writing stuff down. I also write myself motivational things. Like I got on track with one of my utility companies and I celebrated and wrote down to motivate myself, I am stopping cycles. I am stopping cycles. And I wrote that 3 times. And I felt good about that. Another important thing about implementing change, like I said, getting accountability partners. I have another friend that I'm working with who's holding me accountable as well. And then she's connecting me with someone who helps her with the money. Because I also come to realize that people get real weird talking about money. And in my case, I was the first person in my family to make 6 figures. And I felt like I'd never had anyone to talk to or lean on. People just felt like I could complain about anything. And so you don't know that the more money you make, the more you get taxed. Like I haven't gotten a tax refund in about 7 years. But people would think that I do, and I don't. And so things like that. Like, so I've built communities with other people who grew up like me. First daughters, Black women. I always kind of like saving others, but no one to save you. And so it's kind of helped to have those honest conversations and to have accountability partners like that to help me on this journey. And so I think implementing change in that way helps as well. It helps you with implementing change to have that accountability. All right, I'm going to recount. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes, y'all. The 4 things I just talked about on how to stop being broke. And I hope this was helpful. It was kind of transparent, and money is weird to talk about, but I'm hoping that my honesty helped you. If you have any questions, I mean, I'm not a finance expert, but drop them in the comments and I will definitely find out. But how to stop being broke, 4 tips I just shared. Number 1, honestly assess your money. 2, look at your options. Number 3, take action. Number 4, implement change. Y'all, we're going to do this. We're going to end 2025 doing financially better. And until next time, find a little time to take a break.